Welcome to General Service Public Works Committee. Dan Gookin on my right, Kiki Miller on my left. And we are the ones that talk about stuff in the dirt most of the time and the fun things. So first up today, our wastewater treatment plant collection system 10-year thing, right?
Yes, thing.
Mike Becker's here. Thank you, Mike.
Well, good afternoon, Council. Thank you for the opportunity for the wastewater department to present our request for implementation of our sewer master plan. For the last 20 years, the wastewater department's been hiring consultants to analyze the city's sewer collection system. Sewer collection system is the sewer pipes that it takes to convey wastewater from a home or business all the way to the treatment plant. And we do this analysis to study and assess the conditions of our sewer lines, both today, in the near-term future, as well as the long-term future. And this all stems from growth dependency and what have you. We use the master plan as a vital tool to basically identify any deficiencies within our collection system. It also helps us to prioritize any kind of projects for rehab or rehabilitation and establishes our capital improvement plan moving forward into the future. All this information is compiled into this 669-page report that was completed for us at our request by JUB engineers. It makes for some reading bliss. And I encourage council that you have your own binder up there that you can feel free to thumb through. What is the sewer master plan? Well, it is a comprehensive report that includes numerous updates of various models that have been compiled since the previous master plan done in 2013. Basically, as the city grows, demands on our sewer system grow with it. And it's constantly evolving. In other words, it's changing with technology. The goal of this master plan is basically we use it as a tool to help the wastewater department to manage our sewer collection system. So how do we do this? We do this in three different modeled scenarios. Roughly, if we look at what we have today, this slide shows you we have nearly 230 miles of pipe with 10 pump stations, somewhere right around 19,000 connections to our collection system. We actually tabled our master plan for almost a year while the city planning department finished their comprehensive plan. And so we utilized the land use and the densities that are found in our comprehensive plan. As you may recall, that was adopted, I believe, last year. And it's good through 2042, or under a best guess scenario. We also incorporate, okay, what happens when it rains and the impacts to our sewer system. And presently we have roughly about 30 and a half acres of impervious area that somehow find its way into into our collection system. The city has actively and aggressively tackled all those connections that we find out in the public system. Anything that's on private property, we encourage the private property owners to actually assist us in this arena by removing it, especially during a building permit process. And presently, we get about 3 to 4 million gallons a day at the treatment plant. And this is all conveyed through our collection system. So again, we said that we modeled it in three different scenarios: an existing scenario, a near term, and a long term. And when we put all this data into our model, this is and pull the handle, this is our output. So we have roughly about 21,000 residential ERUs. That stands for equivalent residential units. During the wet weather, when it rains and we have a snow event, it can generate up to 4.5 million gallons. This map that is presented before you shows your sewer system as it exists today. What we're interested in is in the red areas that you see, like over here and over here. There's a few spots throughout the older portions of Coeur Lane that have contributed to some kind of issue in the collection system. But as you can see, we're sitting pretty good overall. I mean, there's not very much red on this screen. Orange is highlighted in here. That just tells us that, okay, we need to be aware of this and continue to look at this a little further. So then we move on to what we call the committed model. The committed model is for everything existing, including the land that's annexed into the city but has yet to be developed. And so we want to know what we're committed to serve here in Coeur d'Alene. And as you can see, we jump up to about roughly 24,000 equivalent residential units. Our wet weather flows increase slightly because we don't know what is going to be built on those vacant lots yet. But as you can see, we've only increased our issues with our collection system by 1. We had 17 in our previous model output, and we only increased it by 1. And again, we have no issues with any of our pump stations capacity-wise. So fast forward to the sewer master plan. This is a wealth of information where the meat hits the road, I guess to say, or however you want to word it. We include everything within the ACI, and we base that on a land use, again, taken from our comprehensive plan. And as you can see, we have increased the amount of red in our city's sewer collection system considerably. We have jumped from 18 problem issues to 64. We've also have to deal with a pump station upgrade. Luckily, we get to abandon one of our pump stations in this process. But we also have 4 new pump stations along the way. This is where the bulk of our information that we use to determine what we have for capacity for future developments. It tells us how much room we got in our pipe, whether our pipes can handle, 100 homes or 1,000 homes. It tells us, do we need to be repairing something? Do we need to upsize? It tells us a wealth of information on here. And as you can see, we have a considerable amount of red. So gone are the days of asking the magic 8 ball, do we have capacity? Outlook looks good. Our model tells us.
Leave that.
Couldn't find my crystal ball, so I had to. But anyways, but our model tells us, hey guys, you're going to have some issues. We're going to have some issues in the long-term future, and so we need to consider that. Now, what else does our master plan do for us? On page 2 of my staff report, I kind of outline a capital improvement plan. And this is what has been very beneficial for determining whether or not the wastewater department can accommodate additional growth. And as you can see, we have a bunch of squares on our capital improvement map. This map is in there in this 5.5-inch binder, and we have 2 projects that are in red. And you can see them right here is Project C1, which is down by the Chamber of Commerce, and Project C2, which is out by the golf course. Of interest, Project C2 is scheduled to bid out next month. So our master plan says, okay, you have these projects. We know we have a capacity issue that we're going to have to address. So we stuck flow meters in our C2 project, and it says, lo and behold, yeah, you got to move on this right away. So originally, the master plan told us to budget roughly about 1.6 million. C2 project, as shown in my staff report, comes to 1.2 of that. The C1 project, which is the remaining balance, is actually targeted for us within the next 5 years. Now, we don't ever pull a trigger on any of our projects unless flow dictates. And so we have purchased flow meters, and we're starting to monitor sewer flows ourselves in-house. And so currently we have some flow meters out by the C1 project to tell us whether or not this is something that we have to do in the next 5 years or 10. The orange squares that you see here are slotted for the next 5-year increment in the master plan. And we have another capacity project, which is C7, which is 1.9 million, which is out over here, down here, where we're gonna have to start monitoring flows and be aware of looking at that more aggressively. Fortunately, Project E9, which recently completed at a developer's expense, we were able to capitalize on that project by utilizing our to and through ordinance. It's actually a policy. So we have this policy in place that if a development wants to come in, they're required to extend sewer to their development and through their development. They didn't want to wait. They wanted to move on this project right away, so they covered the $130,000 cost of extending sewer pipe for the city. Everything in purple here is as needed. That means it's going to be based on growth. It's going to be based on rehabilitation. That brings us up to our next topic is, okay, rehabilitation. You're going to hear that project a lot. Every year, the wastewater utility budgets anywhere from $700,000 to $800,000 to rehab our sewer pipes. Similar to like maintenance work that you do on an engine. If you don't dump in a little bit of money and, take care of maintenance work and rehab some parts of your engine, you will eventually have to shell out a bunch of money later on the road, either to replace the vehicle or to rebuild a brand new engine. And so roughly about $7 million of what has been dedicated within the master plan is spelled out for rehabilitation projects. Now, here's the thing about this. We're constantly finding projects that need to be done out there. And we have our own TV cameras, so we scout it out and we find stuff, and things just break down, wear out. And so this is roughly half of what we need. But $700,000 has been identified here. Currently, like I said, we budget $700,000 to $800,000 every year for rehabilitation projects. So far, that's kept us ahead of the game. We haven't had any catastrophic sewer events. So that brings us to our conclusion that the wastewater department would like to start implementing this master plan. Presently, we're implementing our 2013 master plan. We'd like to implement this one, and we are asking for council's approval to do so. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
All right. Got some?
I got a couple.
Go ahead.
Actually, mine are comments. Why don't you go ahead,
Okay.
Dan? You probably have more.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So Mike, just a little light reading. Do you ever do these by pound? Yeah, is that how much you charge the engineers? You say, we'll pay you
They'll just make it heavier.
$50,000 a pound.
Considering that we got 5 of them.
Yeah. Gee whiz. Nice light reading there. On your staff report, you mentioned you have the 20-year capital improvement project cost summary. And then there's a category item called as needed with growth, $37 million. Who ponies that up?
We do.
Well,
That's
I mean,
par-
we do, but I mean, is the developer gonna be paying a lot to put that stuff in, or what?
There are times where development is the responsible factor for that. We try to utilize as much infrastructure as we can to accommodate development. I mean, this city has done a dynamite job of staying ahead of the game. Somebody, post-Depression era, convinced the city to put in a 3-foot diameter pipe right outside this building. And we've been able to capitalize on that and utilize that capacity. So there's some areas, if you go further out east, where we can't accommodate that. And so that's where either development or the capital improvement fund pays into it. And generally, when the capital improvement fund is kicked in is when we are made aware of these things ahead of time. So generally, we've taken the stance, growth pays for growth in
Right.
Coeur d'Alene.
So, for example, if you have core tears coming up, they would put in all their own sewer stuff to your specifications.
Yes,
But the capacity from that site down to the plant, whose responsibility is that?
partially us, partially them, because they're the ones that are forcing the issue. And if we have some problem areas that we're made aware of here, then yes. As you recall, Coeur had to do a lot of the modeling themselves and present it to the wastewater department. And we're currently going through that annexation process where we're labeling conditions. And some of those conditions say, okay, you got to build this or you got to upgrade this pump station. And so, yes, growth, again, pays for growth.
So the $37 million is not all on the back of the existing ratepayers?
The $37 million is basically tells us, okay, this is how much stuff we're going to have to deal with. Whether or not we collect it from a developer or we pull it from our capital improvement fund will be, depends on how it's defined and what it's doing. It's always changing.
Okay, and then the next item is $7 million, and the category is as needed with RR. What's RR?
Good question. RR is an abbreviation term that we use for rehabilitation and replacement.
Okay. All right, just, I didn't know whether that was for railroads or, always
I
define
guess I
your
shouldn't put the
acronyms.
slash in there associated with railroads.
There you
right?
go, thank you. Also, you've mentioned something about TV cameras. Do you have a channel? I would go to your YouTube channel and watch, sewer videos all day long.
Be
So-
Well,
cool.
we refer to those as dirty movies, and anytime you want to watch dirty movies, I used to have a microwave popcorn in the cabinet. We'll get you some popcorn. You
So
can
go to the
watch all the
wastewater
movies
plant.
you want.
Go to the wastewater plant, watch the dirty movies, and eat cake. Right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
muffins.
Thank you. Follow that,
I
Kiki.
just have a couple of questions. So when you showed us Silver Beach needing some increase, well, Silver Beach, there's no apartments there. It's been there the way it is. Why would it need to be, why would there be increased flows? My question, in areas that haven't really changed much. How do you guys calculate that? Is the pipe going bad or too many flushes at one time?
Woody, would that be the
C2.
Hagedorn PUD?
I don't know, it looks like it was at the end of Silver Beach.
There's
the
a,
way-
there's a PUD out there for condos, 6-story condos, I think.
Well,
On Silver Beach?
Yep.
my question was kind of the same question, Woody, and I think what I was referring to was that C2 that you said the flows are already, we have to take care of this now. It's not one we can put off. So, and that's kind of an filled area. What's causing the uptick in the flows in that particular C2 area?
Okay. Sorry it took me so long to rifle through this to get here. You're referring to the C2 project that's red
Yeah, I think if
here?
you go to the
Yeah.
next slide, it's on
So
the
what
next
has happened there is, again, remember I was saying that somebody in the past convinced the city to put in these large pipes. Well, we went from a 24-inch pipe, a 2-foot diameter pipe, for some reason, to a 12-inch pipe, and then we went back to a 24-inch pipe. So that C2 project is between the two 24-inch pipes that we can increase that capacity there. What Councilperson Kiki Miller's position was, yes, we have a problem today. We stuck flow meters in there. We have already reached the point where we're hitting the capacity of the pipe. Keep in mind, the capacity of the pipe is not always a full pipe. These pipes are not built to operate under pressure, and whenever you have a full pipe, that's pressure. So we want the
Stuff.
flow inside the sewer, inside the pipe, to be partially full. And that way, we don't increase pressures and destroy the pipe that's out there. We are already having a problem, and that's why you'll see Larry bring a presentation for awarding a bid for C2 next month. And so, keep in mind, this plan was in the process while all of this was going on, and this was actually defined, C2 was defined in the 2013 model as well. So, we were actively engaging and progressing with C2 while this project, this master plan was being developed. And ironically, it's shown on this master plan. I would question if this one didn't show it and the 2013 did. So since both of them show it and our flow meters say that, hey, you got a problem, we got to do something out there. Somebody will be standing before you next month.
So,
Go ahead.
so the C2 section that you're talking about is going from 24 to 12 to 24, so you're going to increase that to 24. Is that, how old is that pipe on either end?
How old is that
I mean,
pipe?
yeah. You're putting a new section in between two old sections? Is that what's happening?
Gosh, I don't know how old that pipe is. I
Because see,
brought Larry
see-
Parsons with me here today. He's our senior person that's been here at the city for 30-plus years. Larry, do you have an idea? I don't know how old that pipe is.
So the downstream portion is older. I can't tell you, 30s, 40s, whenever that big trunk line was put in. The upper portion is newer, probably since 90s, 2000. That piece in the middle was run cross-country through private property with easements. And that's the bottleneck. That's where our capacity issue is.
There you go.
We're gonna route around it up on Mullen Avenue. So it almost will eliminate that whole section of pipe when we're done,
Nice.
so,
Okay.
Was that the one that went under the guy's garage? Yeah, okay.
bingo.
Well, we're
That's the
gonna
one.
finally fix it. All right.
Okay.
Here's a question for you. So you talked about, I called it stormwater. I always thought stormwater was its own world, but it impacts you guys. How does it get into your sewer? Your system is pretty closed, isn't it? But you are taking rainwater and snow melt. Can you explain that simply?
Sure. Inherently, you sometimes get a little bit of it coming in through the manholes out in the streets. You know, when our streets flood, it sometimes works its way in there. But not enough to really concern us. And back in, I would say back before I was even a thought, the accepted practice was to directly connect your roof drain to your sanitary sewer drain. We call those CSOs. The City of Coeur d'Alene actively does not allow CSOs. So moving forward, since somewhere in the 70s, we said, well, time out, no more. You can't do that. Because every time it rains, suddenly the treatment plant gets hit with a whole bunch of water, and you have to deal with it. So we said, no more. And so in the process, what we've done is we've done smoke testing, we've done 4 different analyses out there, flow monitoring, and more flow monitoring, and even more flow monitoring to find these problem areas. We as a wastewater department have aggressively addressed all the cross connections out in the public area, out in the right-of-way, out in the parks. And we've even gone it to the extent of doing a large project in the Fort Grounds area to remove it. What we have now is just some of these businesses up and down Sherman. I still think that we need to aggressively look at the hospital corridor area for some more of these cross connections. And I believe we can address some of those cross connections. Fortunately, when we have a huge rain event, and we've had a few of them this last summer, we don't get hit quite as hard as what you would think. Although the other day, we had a rain on snow event and we got hit with 6 million gallons. Fortunately, the treatment plant can accommodate that. We're a 6 million gallon treatment plant. So we were able to accommodate that and not compromise our treatment capacity of our plant. So, but we will still keep pursuing it. And yeah, stormwater is not a good thing for sanitary sewer.
But you said the norm is 3 to 4 million gallons on a normal day. So 6 is a lot, but 3 to 4 is normal.
Correct.
So it's something that you can actually measure as you get better at it. Is that correct? Wow. Is there a way when you guys, we do these things every 10 years, do you compare like what you've accomplished and how things that have gotten better, you know? We don't talk about it much. I'm sure the plan probably addresses it if you have that perspective, you know, of what are the most important things that you guys feel good about accomplishing in 10 years before we have to kind of keep going forward to keep fixing?
Well, I think if we can stay ahead of the game, first of all, keep in mind that, you know, things seem to escalate in price as we keep moving on down the road. And so it doesn't get any cheaper to do something. So if we can do something today and we have the capacity to do so, there's a benefit to that. So this helps identify some of those. When I say this, the 2022 master plan helps identify those. You recall that I showed you the maps here, like this one here, that shows you that we have 64 issues that we're gonna have problems with as we grow further out west and infill. But we also have, what I didn't show you today is the surcharging that's occurring in our pipes. And so the 2013 master plan said you have 3 surcharge projects in your existing model. This one says, you got 17. We went from 8 in our master plan in 2013 to 64 in this one. And so we have identified other capacity issues. We've identified other bottlenecks similar to this 2-foot, 12-inch, 2-foot pipe. We have another one of those, and it's even highlighted here right across from the mall area.
Really?
So we have some problem areas that, this master plan has aggressively tackled. I have a laundry list. I'm sure you don't want me to go through each and every one of them, but I will be more than happy to provide that.
Well, some of the good ones that you feel happy about would be nice.
What I
sorry.
really like about this master plan is, as you recall, we have a GIS map that the entire city uses. The police department, the fire department, water, the entire city uses this GIS map. We can click on this map at any given time, and I just now found out what we have for capacity for a developer. I can tell you what we think we have out there today. I can tell you whether or not it needs cleaning. I can tell you when was the last time it was cleaned, how old is it? There's a wealth of information that's stored on our GIS system, and much of the information is from this book here. And we've already posted it on our GIS map. This is also being made available to the public. As you recall, years past, we wanted to know what projects are coming into Coeur d'Alene, so we always forced the development community to approach us, and we would pull out the 2013 master plan, which is only 375 pages, by the way. But we'd pull that out, and we'd tell them, okay, this is what you got to work with. This is posted on our website, so the public now has access to it, and they can look it up. They can say, hey, if I flush my toilet 3 times, what's going to happen? They have the ability to access the same information.
2 other questions. So when you look at the area that we are committed to take care of, to service is the word I think you guys use, where does that come from? Who decides that?
That's your city limits, as it is today. And so committed means that we're committed to serve. So that means we either do or do not have the capacity, intent, and willingness to serve you based on how the city is today. So we look at the existing infrastructure, but this takes account all the properties that are vacant or not connected that are in the city. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the final one is, so all of this and all that money, how does this impact what I'm paying a month to flush?
I'll be bringing that before you next week.
Okay, so it's another perspective.
So we have a rate study that we do, and this is why this was so important, to get this information to the other consultant that we have doing the rate study. So this gives us dollars, this gives us, okay, what kind of depreciation, what kind of assets we have that we need to aggressively rehab or, upgrade, blah, blah, blah. And so that will be brought before you in our rate study. And like I said, that's, 2 weeks from now, I believe.
All right. I just love this stuff, I'm sorry. Things we take for granted.
You got almost all my questions. Look at
Oh,
me
sorry.
crossing them off. That is so good.
Sorry.
Mike, I just had a couple of things. One thing is, a follow-up question, Woody just said, one of the things, the committed model is the city limits, but your next one said that the master plan includes the ACI as well. Is that?
Yes. What you see here is everything that's kind of well, I'm sorry. Let's try it this way. That's shadowed. So here's Hutter, here's Prairie. As you can see, we go up the hillside. We go out here. This is Fernand Lake. We go all over the place. We go across the river.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So that, again, encompasses that entire area. I believe that was an additional 22 square miles.
Yeah, so it says. And then I think impact fees are being reviewed right now. So how does this wastewater master plan interact with that?
Again, that will be brought before you
The
with our
rates.
rate study.
All right, so impact fees rates. Then I just had, Woody got most of mine, which was great. I was just going to ask you if you could, just for those folks who live outside of the wastewater treatment plant, put a legend in here that says this is what these colors mean, because I didn't see that. And so I was kind of walking through this part, not in the study, but in this part. I don't think a lot of folks are going to, I mean, no offense, probably not read that 600 and something pages, but if this is going to council, it would be great if this PowerPoint was kind of updated a little bit, so there were fewer acronyms and a better legend, because it's probably one I'll refer back to real quickly for that little bit of information. And ACI and ERUs, and there's a lot of, I think you got some space to stretch that out, is what I'm saying. I'd really
Okay.
appreciate if you do that, and then put a color legend so that folks know what was the green versus purple versus blue. What does that mean to us? I know that when I sit in on the Joint Government North Idaho Building Contractors Association meetings, some of our neighboring cities, everything is about sewer, and they have some real issues. And so to be able to really let folks find a source to get their questions answered, that we do have a plan, we do have this capacity, we aren't making decisions randomly whenever any developer asks, and we have the basis in this knowledge to say this is what our capacity is, and it's easier for folks to understand would be great.
Okay?
One more question. Population. Seems like our whole growth thing is based around you guys. How much can we flush? I guess water too. But does it change that much? I mean, I know the technology's getting better. Does the technology getting better mean we can do more flushing? Does that make sense in your world?
Yeah, Mike, too, I'm going to add on to Woody's question, because one of them I missed here was that one of the things that comes up is what happens if you don't fix it? What the technology's changed and balanced things out. We're experiencing a lot of growth. We want growth to pay for itself and pay for these, but what happens in a situation, I mean, I can only imagine, but I'd really like you to say, what happens if you don't fix it? Like if you didn't fix the C2 area?
Okay. So to answer Woody's first question on growth, we base it off of historical information as well as the census, and we look at KMPO. It's defined under one of the chapters, it just escapes me here, but we looked at it and we sat down with our consultants, and it was projected out that we are experiencing roughly about 2.5% growth rate. And this seems to correspond with the KMPO as well as past historical data. Now, you're going to get some fluctuations, obviously, so don't quote me to a perfect 2.5% growth rate. It's just one of those things that we projected out, 20 to 40 years. And this is kind of how we estimate whether or not our master plan is coinciding with, our population growth out there. So at 2.5% growth rate, I have it right here, ironically, on this, 54,000 people. It's going to probably be within the next 10 years.
54 in 10
54.
years. I thought that's where
Or
we're
wait a
at
minute,
now.
20 years, is it 10 or 20 years?
54 is now.
Oh, 54 is now?
Right. I thought 80 was a
1,000.
cap
Oops.
about 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's why I worded it that way. 54,000 plus 2.5% growth rate per year.
Okay,
So
What's the maximum capacity of the plant?
right.
we don't look at it from an ERU standpoint or a population base. We look at it at a flow. Right now, today, is 6 million gallons a day.
How do you answer the question then? What's our capacity for people?
Today, per people,
For-
I would have to calculate that. I don't have that number up.
Okay.
Wait,
We have to know when to start saying no.
so, I'm sorry, pardon?
We have to know when to start saying no. I mean, when you're gonna do a report someday for a huge annexation, and you're gonna say, yeah, we can't handle that.
We already did.
Really?
Yeah, so there was a development along Prairie right there by
Didn't
the
come to
Maverick.
us. Didn't
What's
come
that?
to- It didn't come to us. Or it did.
During the preliminary state, it's like, okay, we do not have capacity to serve you. So either no, or this has to be built. And so we're currently, got that on our list for installing flow meters just to find out what we have.
Interesting.
So to answer Councilperson Miller's question about what happens if we don't do something out there, you've heard me say the statement that my pipes don't magically grow out there. They're fixed. And so if you try to force, 2 gallons through a 1 gallon pipe, something's got to give. Either the pipe's going to break or it's just going to back up somewhere. Generally, that backup occurs in some people's basements or out in the streets. And so you don't read about that happening very much here in Coeur d'Alene because we have this and we aggressively maintain our sewer systems. And so we don't allow ourselves to reach that point. And hence why Project C2 was fast-tracked for this year.
And backflow valves are required.
And what?
And backflow valves are required.
It's for water.
Yeah, only if your basement's lower than their downstream manhole. Right, yes, backflow valves are very useful,
They're water and so,
and they perhaps are,
the last line of defense.
right, yeah. So, but fortunately, like I said, your wastewater utility does a pretty good job, not because I work for them. It's the guys out there in the streets that are doing a great job taking care of that infrastructure. This just says, hey, you're gonna have to look here a little closer.
Great job, Mike. I think this is, I always like to get caught up in all the flushing and stuff. And realistically, we have to keep it separate. You got pipes getting it there, and then they got the plant to do the work. So this is awesome. Any comments?
I just want to expand, you would be one of the items that we don't encourage people to flush. So Councilman Woody Evers,
I use that term a lot. That's how I count them. All right, look for a motion from council if we could.
Oops. I don't have the page in front of me. Is it a resolution? You have it, Dan?
Yes. I would move that we recommend that council approve the implementation of the 2022 wastewater collection system sewer master plan update and place it on the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any other comments, thoughts? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Mike. Great job.
thank you.
Dave Hagar, now we go to to police. P to P.
I'm sorry, I don't think I can
How are you, Dave?
go with the whole, what was the name of the movie, Mike?
Dirty movies.
Yeah, we won't be talking about that in this presentation.
There you go.
Good afternoon, council members.
Welcome.
What I bring before you today is a request to approve our contract with our selected architect for our expansion project, and that's in a nutshell. Back in August, September, we put out an RFQ, and we had 6 responses to that. Many of those were nationwide companies, some that had local partners. And these are people that are specific in building or designing facilities that are public safety related, police and fire, to bring that to us. Worked with several of our internal partners to be on the review panels for this, both on the RFQs and then with the final 3 that we brought in-house to present presentations to us. And a unanimous decision by the board was to select Trainer HL. They also have a local Lewiston firm that they've are partnering with for this. And this isn't just an architectural for a building. Part of this is the fact, and I think this goes to Councilmember Miller's statements in the last project, is we have to look at what the police needs are for the future. And working with planning and looking at some of the projections, it's expected that the build out for the city of Coeur d'Alene is going to be about 87,500 people for population. Part of that we look at is what is the police staff going to take when it's that build out time? Because we don't want to come back to you in 10 or 15 years and say we need to buy another lot, we need to do another building. We'd like to be able to accomplish this all at one. So after we engage in communication with the architectural firm, and again, since September, we've been meeting with them. They've come out on site with us. I have weekly meetings with them. And again, just to remind you, we did the CMGC process, the general manager, contractor. So they've been on board. So we don't have an architect that's bringing us the Taj Mahal and then later the contractor just bids on it. They're in these meetings with us to say, we can save you money if we do it this way to get the bang for the buck. So part of this first phase is a master plan. What do we need at build out? How many square feet? And so we looked at staffing studies. We did them 2 different ways to figure out how many officers we're going to need. And if we have so many officers, we need this many records staff, and it kind of grows out from there. And they can say that one records person needs 64 square feet, and one of these people needs this many square feet. So we actually have the buildings that come back onto that so we can support that, which again, why I bring it up is we're in the impact fee study. I've been working with Sean Holmes' group and that group, and the last week we came and said, I think we're going to make this easier for you. We've just figured out projection-wise how many people we're going to need and how many square feet we're going to need, which is the huge part of what they do for their impact fee projections. So at the end of the day, there's the master plan, because we know we don't have enough money right now with the ARPA money that has been allocated to fully build this out. We're going to need more, hopefully, with other funding sources in the future. So there's a master plan, and this will be the first phase. And the amount that we've come to is 9% of what the building costs are going to be. And that takes out, for example, right now I'm getting surveys done, the boring surveys for soil and things of that nature. So we back those out, and with the 2 people already meeting, once we figure out the best bang for the buck and we know what the total construction costs are going to be, then we can figure the 9% when it comes from there. And so again, they're doing the master plan and the designing of the first phase for this 9%. And so at this point, we'd request approval to move forward with this contract with Trainer HL.
Questions?
Thanks, Dave. So Trainer HL is going to be acting as the CM.
No, they
GC?
are the architect. Coeur Construction, who we came to you with, I apologize, I want to say it was August possibly. Coeur Construction was selected as our CMGC.
Okay, so this is just the design
This is the
phase.
design personnel.
Okay, so they will report to Coeur with their,
Well, right, the way it's kind of set up is we all meet together with this, and as the city's representative, the city gets to approve the phases, and we have discussions again every Monday at 2. We have discussions, and then throughout there, when it comes to design sets, then we work with that. But they actually kind of work together, and if there's any conflicts, the way the contract reads, we're the ones that get to come in as the project owner to clarify those.
so if there's change orders in this design contract, those will be approved by you or the CMGC?
Well, we're hopeful, because bringing the CMGC on, I've told them my goal is zero change orders. We should have all of this figured out, because we're bringing the contractor on that can spot those things before those plans are done. Is it realistic that we're going to have 0? There's probably something that's going to pop up, and I understand that. But the mission that we set out is by bringing them in together, by the time the plans are submitted, we shouldn't have any major issues. The biggest thing that we're seeing right now is the lead time for specialty equipment, and they're saying some of those will take 9 months to get in, and so that's really the only issue, and there might be a substitution that comes in, but really anything that's of a major, we want to move a wall or we want to move that shouldn't be in this project at all.
So upon approval of this design services contract, then is there at any point milestone or needs for further council approval or involvement in any more of the construction process?
Not necessarily a construction process. I'm waiting on a quote from HMHM Engineering that's doing a survey for us, an Alta surveying, and then the boring survey. And since it's a contract, I need to bring it before council, and I just haven't gotten they haven't gotten all their workings together for that. I don't know of anything else specific that would have to come before you, but we'd be more than happy to bring before you what our proposed design looks like, and again, kind of what the phasing. Because at the end of the day, once we have the overall master plan, our first thing is getting locker room space. We have people that don't have lockers, and so that's our first priority, and we've kind of prioritized out from there, and that's how we believe that the expansion of the structure is going to take place. We'd be more than happy to bring those things back in front of you, though, so you can see what we're looking at and what the phases will be.
I think we'd be interested in updates, that just for public knowledge as to how things are going. This is a big, big project and a really big deal, and I know that there was, a few years back, some folks who had some concerns about the CMGC process, kind of like your contract manager, general contractor are the same, so, it's kind of the fox watching the hen house kind of situation. So I think with these dollars and the oversight of that, I'm just checking to see if there are any other balances that the council could bring forward to make sure we've got a good quality project and are supporting this moving forward in the best financial light possible.
Sure, absolutely. I think the next step, probably once we get this initial phase, which is locker rooms and some other stuff, we just don't know what that looks like yet with the monies that we have. I think that would be a good spot to come forward and say, this is what we're projecting now, and then kind of letting you know what the overall picture looks like. Because again, as we know how many square footage, I think we wrapped that up last week, we don't know what that looks on paper yet. So that's the next step that they've been working on. So they've actually been actively working on this even prior to having the contract in place.
Okay, so then my last question was, if you're capping this at 9% of the budget for the cost of the work, but that's going to be kind of a fluctuating number because you haven't really identified what the final cost of the work is that how you're anticipating this contract reading?
Yeah, so after they come up with the plans, and again, having the architect or the contractor kind of looking over their shoulder, then they give them to the contractor, and the contractor says, here's our gross maximum price. Not to use the acronyms, but I had to figure out some of these along the way. Mm-hmm. The GMP comes out. And really, the concept behind this is we have $4.5 million allocated. Obviously, we're going to have contingencies and things like that in there, but once we get the GMP, then that's what sets their official price on that. And again, backing out what I would call our survey costs and some of those other things, we're less, and even our pre-construction with the contractors, $40,000, we're going to be right a little less than $100,000, I believe, by the time we get all that done. So that means there's $4.4 million left for construction and architecture. So we figure out how those numbers work to get the most construction that we can.
So that's not really going to be a contract price, that'll be kind of a budget price internally?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Dan?
I'm good.
I have a couple questions. I think you covered my end of it.
Gosh.
A couple of things we've learned from building things in the city that I've been here is make sure that the roofs don't dump snow on the sidewalk or in front of the front door. Some of the old-time architects don't think like that, but I know you guys are like
This
that.
gentleman flew out from Kansas while we had snow to take a look, and we mentioned those things specifically
Good.
as we want to include snow. And not only that, but where do we put the snow from our parking lot? And that was a discussion from last week with what kind of projections and what the parking lot's going to look like. He says, how about if we put the snow over here, which I've really appreciated the insight that they have with what they're doing.
Good. So they know about snow and stuff.
They get snow, yeah.
So is this, you were talking about phases, so you get what you can for the 4.5.
Correct.
But the plan goes on, so the plumbing comes across, the electrical's all there. It's like you don't start over on each phase as you were able to get more money, correct?
No, we don't start over. That's why the master plan's in place. I don't want this to look like a Frankenstein building where
Gotcha.
somebody got some more money and put something. We want to look this so it looks contiguous, like it was built all at one point in time. And that's been, I think that was even in some of our RFQ information when we asked them questions in their interview. We want this to look like one whole building.
I think it's awesome. I'm really excited to see what happens, and you guys keep your thumb on it.
We have the weekly check-ins, and we speak probably 2 or 3 other times during the week, and I'm learning more about building and construction than I have in
wanted
the
to-
past. So we hope that we're on top of it.
All right. Any other questions,
Nope,
comments?
I
You're
would,
good? How about a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the design services contract with Trainer HL for the master plan and first phase of the police remodel and expansion project.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other comments? Great work. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Moving on. Fire department's here. Holy Mary, that's why you guys wore your
We
shirts.
wore our
Dang,
shirts.
Nobody told me. All right, Craig, either,
Last one standing.
welcome, Craig.
Thank you. All right, so we have a couple of presentations for you today. Neither one of them really are looking for anything other than we just want to tell you about some stuff that we've been working on for quite a while, and we would like to put the final endeavor on these projects. So first one we're going to talk about is third-party inspection program. So our third-party inspection program is going to be a lot similar to what council approved with the short-term rentals in the contract with Granicus. They're and identifying fire protection systems within the city that need to be serviced properly, and making sure that those documents get to the fire department where we can facilitate any problems or fixes that need to be done. So here's a few code sections in fire code that give us the authority and also make it so that commercial properties are supposed to be keeping these tracks of this information for us, and it just hasn't really been being done in such a great way over the last many years, so we're looking to improve what we have going on. So the third-party inspection program will inspect fire protection systems. These are a few fire protection systems that are in commercial buildings, from sprinklers and alarms, standpipes, fire pumps, fire extinguishers, kitchen hoods, emergency lights and exit illumination, fire doors, elevators. These are all things that we could potentially use our third-party inspection company to help us manage maintenance on all of these fire protection systems. We probably are not looking at an all-inclusive list as we work through that. So why do we need this help? Well, basically in the prevention staff, you have had 2 fire prevention folks for a good period of time, about 20 years at least. And we really do not know where all of our commercial buildings are, which systems are in all of those commercial buildings, which systems within those commercial buildings are receiving their annual maintenance the way that they're supposed to. It just is something that's slipped through the cracks for a number of years, and we'd like to improve that. Water department actually keeps a pretty good list of all of the backflow devices in the city, and so if those backflow devices are attached to fire sprinkler systems, then through working with the water department, we're able to kind of identify some areas where we know fire sprinklers are at least, but we know there's probably, if there's sprinklers, there's probably other fire protection systems as well. We did check our RMS is our records management software. So a few years ago we had changed that. So now all of our historical data is kind of bound up in archives, and we're actually, due to our records management companies being bought and sold over time, it's on our list to look at as well, whether we are continuing with the one we're currently using. But really, the whole entire reason that we wanted to bring this program forward is that we want to ensure that all the fire protection systems that protect property and our citizens in the city of Coeur d'Alene are maintained, and they're operational, and they'll work when they're needed. So, like I said, it's a third-party company that would come in, meet with us, meet with the individual ITM or inspection, testing, and maintenance companies that do the service work within our commercial properties. And they come here, they meet with all of those ITM companies. Most of them are out of Spokane. We do have a few local ones that work within the city. But they come in, They meet all of the individual ITM companies. They teach them how to use the program. They handle all of that work for us so that we don't have to train the individual companies on how to use their system. They meet with the fire department and work to create discrepancy forms and violation notices so that those letters are coming from fire department letterhead and with our approval, our wording, the way that we want to deliver a message. And of course, our legal will help us out with that a lot to make sure that those are good forms that go out. And then within the program, it'll show us which inspections are being done, how many of them have deficiencies, any fixes that needs done, and we'll get to some of that stuff here. So here's a demo screen from one of the companies, and so we'll get charts that will be able to show us the number of deficiencies, number of systems that we have, looking at which businesses or inspections are done each day, and if they're still open, if they have deficiencies, if they've had any letters sent out attached to them, whether they've been assigned to an inspector to follow up. But this dashboard here is just an example of what that might look like. So currently within our records management software, if we enter in a document that we get from one of the individual ITM companies, between our prevention bureau and our admin staff, they go in and they enter the information to show that an inspection was done. And if we don't get one the next year, they show up as overdue. And so this next few pages of slides is the first page of about 5 or 6 pages on my dashboard of my current records management system. So you can see we have quite a lot of systems that are showing that they're overdue. Now, of course, a lot of these companies, if you look at the names attached to them, they probably have gotten their annual inspection, just the company didn't send us a copy of it, or the owner didn't send us a copy of it, so we don't know that it got done. So until we're able to get a crew out there or a fire inspector, we're not going to know that that system's been done. So yes, we could cold call all of these folks, stay on them, request to get copies of the inspections, but we don't know that that is the best use of our fire inspectors, our fire marshals, deputy fire marshals' times. So just a little bit more of a reminder of what our deputy fire marshals do on a daily basis. We do all of the plan reviews and permit occupancy inspections for adherence to the fire code. We do licensure inspections like daycares, mobile food vendors. We do life safety inspections. So somebody wants a fire inspection, they give us a call, we go out and do that. We do public education. I did public education for 482 Winton Elementary students before this meeting today. We respond to 911 calls as your fire investigators and your safety officers and public information officers wherever we're needed on 911 calls. And of course we do weekly and daily meetings with other city departments as well as event planning and inspection. So we've kind of a real life example for you that, we think we got away with one here, and I think that if we had good quality follow-ups and adherence to the inspections, that we probably would have found a lot of this stuff. But anyway, we had a motel fire on one of our motels on Appleway. We had a fire with the sprinkler activation. There was no fire alarms attached to the sprinkler system. It's an old hotel. It may not have been required at the time, but we didn't know that there was not a fire alarm attached to the sprinkler system at that time. We found over here, one of the fire doors was just flat out missing. So that's just not great. These fire doors are designed to help keep smoke and fire from spreading to other areas of the building, right? So in this case, they were not able to keep smoke out, so we had further smoke damage than we probably needed to. We found dirty sprinkler heads, paint and lint and items like that, exit lines. So we found a whole bunch of problems, and this is not really a big fire. It was a RC car battery, but somehow it activated the fire sprinkler system, which that has to get to at least 255 degrees. But when they get all built up with the lint and gunk in them, it can make them activated at different temperatures other than how they're designed to work. So in this case, we may have gotten an earlier activation on the fire sprinkler system without having an alarm system that contacted us directly. We may have had more water damage in this event than we needed to have if all of the systems were maintained and working the way that they were supposed to. So anytime you bring in somebody, there's got to be a cost, right? So these third-party inspection companies, they charge anywhere from $15 to $20 per system. So how that would look is if you have a sprinkler system, an inspection gets done on that, $15 is charged by the individual inspection company. If you have an alarm system, same thing, $15 so for each of those systems, any report that is submitted to the third-party reporting system to manage there's a fee for $15 to $20 depending on the company. So as we've looked at this over the years, we've seen everything from the individual inspection companies eating that cost to splitting that cost, or passing all of that cost for the reporting cost to the third party onto the end user, the property owner. But the bonus here is for the fire department and for the city budget, there is no additional cost for us to operate within this system. So the individual companies are passing on that fee to the end user, and they're just helping to manage all of the parts and pieces and make sure we get the information we need. There are some departments that have added an additional fee on top of what the third-party company charges, and they've used that as a funding revenue source for staffing. So in the valley, they charge an additional $15, I do believe, and that funds a part-time worker during the summer. Meridian Fire charges an additional $15. It pays about a quarter of a full-time employee's wage. Boise has enough systems down there that they pay for a full-time employee. So that is a revenue option that is out there. Again, this is a big list of systems that we can charge for, and so we will work through our contract there to decide which systems we want to really focus on and want to have charged. And basically we're here to present this concept, and as I said, there is a high probability that the individual inspection companies will pass this cost on to the end user. And so if there's somebody that's going to hear about that, it'll be us, and I'm sure it will be you guys as well that will hear about it. So we wanted to present this to you and make sure that you were comfortable with this model of operation to help us be a little bit better. So in a quick review here, it doesn't cost us anything to our general budget or the city's general budget to employ this program. It's a cost-effective option as opposed to increasing full-time employees. It will increase the compliance and tracking of our fire protection service, which may actually help us with our insurance rating survey that
Is
we
that
have coming
ISO?
up. ISO is what we used to use. ISRB is what we're using now, and we actually have an ISRB inspection coming up in April. So
What's ISRB?
it's Idaho Surveys and Ratings Bureau. Standards and Ratings Bureau. Something like that.
Got questions for Craig?
Yeah, Craig,
Yes, sir.
where's the liability in this? So they do the inspections, something bad happens, who gets sued? I mean, everyone gets sued, but, you know,
Yeah, everyone gets sued. So they currently are supposed to be doing these inspections, the individual companies and the property owner. So if you own a piece of property and it has a fire protection system in it, you're supposed to be doing annual inspections on it anyway. So I don't think there's any change in the liability there because it's already supposed to be happening.
perfect, thank you.
It's just a way for us to get better track and make sure that we're getting that done. A quick little anecdote here, Meridian Fire, when they started with their third-party inspection company, they had about 74% compliance with their fire protection systems, and last year they had 94%. So within a 4 or 5 year period of time, they've bumped that up. They have they're currently showing about 300 systems with deficiencies within the city of Meridian. So it's a good program for helping to rein everything in and make sure the systems are good to go.
Good.
Question?
So my question was kind of along that lines, is do you have a projection of, do you have a measurable goal that you're going to track to say, what is this going to do? I didn't hear you mention that it was going to save the department any money. It's just going to take one of the tasks off of your fire marshals and put it to a third party. So what's the measurable goal or savings for the city?
So I think measurably right now, I can't tell you at all what we may have currently serviced appropriately or systems with deficiencies. We have probably maybe 3 of the individual inspection companies that send us reports on a regular basis, and that really only started in this last year as new people came into their offices and they called us and said, hey, are we supposed to be sending you copies of these inspection reports? And we're like, yes, please. And so we got a couple of good people in the office workings of some of those local companies, and so they have been sharing. So we do know a little bit, but nothing that I would give you with confidence. So in a few years, I would hope that we see similar numbers to what Meridian or I think the Valley is somewhere in that 90 to 95% range as well, and they've been using these third-party inspection companies for a while as well.
So is that a plan for you to track what your percentages of increase in compliance is?
Yeah, absolutely. So that ISRB rating that's coming up in April, one of the things that we will be measured on is how many businesses in town are getting their inspections and are in compliance. And where we may not have a great number this go round, maybe the next time they come around, we'll have a good solid number that
Data.
we can give them.
So I'm just wanting to get my head around this piece.
Sure.
It sounds like, and maybe this voluntary fire inspection.
That's the
packet-
next thing we're going to talk
We're going to talk
about.
about that one later. But, so a lot of these folks, just tell me, let me be clear on this one. So a lot of these folks are already doing these inspections and sending them into you. So for all of those folks, this third-party inspector comes to them and says, well, I need to go through and do this inspection, and by the way, because of all these things, it's gonna cost you $150. So is that the way this program's gonna work? Are the folks who've been already submitting their inspection reports going to have a third-party person charge them to now do the submission of the inspection report?
Yes.
Okay, that doesn't seem fair, but.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like The end goal is to get the service done. Yes, there's companies out there that have been doing it, but even with what they're doing now, they may just send us a copy of the form, right? So we still have time in reviewing that form, looking for deficiencies, deciding whether the deficiency that is there is something that has to be handled immediately, or if it's something that has some kind of fix rate time frame behind it that we are comfortable with. Right now, as that individual company gets done and they notice deficiencies, they may tell the business owner. The business owner at that point, as long as they're willing to assume that liability, they may not get it fixed, or we have to go and track them down and remind them that they need to get those things fixed, right? So the third-party company is coming in, is doing the reviews. The ones that are good to go, they sail through pretty easily, and they pull out the reports that we need to address and spend more time correcting.
Okay. This isn't an action item, so I was just making an observation that it
Sure.
feels like we're going to start charging the folks who are doing it right, and we aren't really saving any money in the department, so all that work that was happening in the review is being done by someone else. So I'm feeling I just feel a little bit like that's unfair. I don't know if there's a way to really look at that, but it sounds like it's a way that you're trying to get a better, safer product out there for the city, and that's a measurable goal. So I'll just sit back and see what others think about it.
Yeah, I think Councilman McEvers, your business uses
All this
their
stuff.
fire department uses a third-party inspection. So I think hopefully you're familiar with what we're talking about.
Well, I know in our world of restaurants, we have fire suppression, we have hoods, we have fire extinguishers. I mean, there's all these things that are serviced by companies, and you pay them hundreds or 200s or 400 a couple times a year. There were certain things that the fire guys would come in and go, oh, that CO2 tank for your soda pop machine needs to be chained to the wall.
Sure.
Who knew that, right? But that's how you learn. They were also, the fire guys would pop in and go, your light's burned out on your exit sign.
Yeah.
Those kind of what I call little things, the doors, making sure the fire doors work and stuff, but I don't remember anything. It was important for us to get the certificate, never thinking of, oh, it goes to you guys.
Right.
And then, if there was some deficiencies, usually you don't have they fix it. That's what you're paying them to do, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of along the same lines. I'm going, is this stuff we should have been doing? And it kind of like it got the priorities changed is the best way I can think of why your guys are looking at this, right?
Well, I think we just want to find a better way to do it, right? And so we can come to you and request more inspectors to go out and manage these things, to follow up, to check and make sure that these reports are getting done. If there's problems, to do the reviews, to go out and do the follow-ups. We can certainly do that, but this seems like a more cost-effective way for us to ensure that the fire protection systems that are protecting the property and the citizens in the city are being taken care of and being managed and being cared for in the way that code requires them to be cared for without coming to you and requesting additional personnel.
Gotcha. I get it. Any other questions? Gook? All right. Thanks. Next.
Perfect.
At least it's not costing us anything yet.
I'm trying not
Oh,
to.
you're doing good.
Okay, so this is a self-inspection program, and we've been looking at something along these lines for a good number of years. But basically, a self-inspection program allows lower hazard businesses to self-inspect their business for fire and life safety compliance. So back in 2016, a new National Fire Protection Agency, NFPA, code came out, numbered 1730. This is the big long name, plus it has some more stuff there, but it's basically how we organize and develop our fire prevention, inspection, and code enforcement programs. And it identified an inspection schedule by hazard classification. So whereas what we're seeing in our pre-work for our ISRB rating that we're coming up on, and it looks like they're going to require inspections on all occupancies. This code says, hey, it's okay if you kind of split these hazard classifications up a little bit and give them a different priority, right? So we look at high life and property hazards as things that we need to make sure that we're doing a better job of getting into every year to make sure that they're safe, right? And places that maybe are a smaller mercantile or smaller life safety issue, we can maybe put those off for a little bit. And we'll go through some of that stuff. So basically it splits hazards or commercial occupancies into high risk. So thinking of things like apartments, hotels, school dorms, assemblies, or child cares, educational facilities, and healthcare facilities. This code would say we need to be focusing on getting annual inspections and all of those high hazard type of occupancies. So in a moderate risk, like ambulatory healthcare or in our industrial areas of town, we could maybe do a biannual inspection on those types of occupancies. Critical infrastructure, they leave up to the authority having jurisdiction, but this is essentially our government buildings and properties, and we try to work with our buildings and grounds folks to run around when they're doing our fire sprinkler and alarm services during the summer, fall there, to try and get out and do fire safety inspections as well in our city buildings. So that's important for us. And then it looks at these low risk occupancies, so storage facilities, mini storage places, mercantiles, so a lot of think of Sherman Avenue where we have a small clothing store. It's not a very large space. There's nothing above it. It's a pretty low hazard as far as fire hazard go, or businesses, small business offices, professional services. We can go up to triennially for those types of businesses. So here's kind of the code section that we're basing this program off of. Is this code comes in here and says, hey, it's okay to use a self-inspection program for low occupancy risk hazard groups. So, and here again are the low hazard occupancies. So businesses, mercantiles, self-storage, or low hazard storage type occupancies. So why would we want to do something like this? So right now, the way that we conduct those inspections of looking at the fire doors and looking at your exit lights and making sure some of those things is we can either use our deputy fire marshals or we can use our 911 suppression crews. So if we can reduce the number of occupancies that our 911 crews need to help us out with, that leaves them available to respond, to keep up on their training, or to do inspections or pre-planning inspections of higher risk occupancies where they need to spend more time. This is hopefully going to be a convenience for the business owners in these low hazard occupancies. So instead of a station of 4 or 5 firefighters coming to wander around their business, they'll be able to handle these fire safety inspections on their own. It will allow our crews and our deputy fire marshals to focus on the higher hazard occupancies. Of course, decrease the ever-expanding workload of the fire department, whose resources are limited, including our 2 deputy fire marshals. So how this all came about, the concept is a little bit of a brainchild of Captain Greg Rod, who was taking an executive fire officer program, a 4-year, I do believe, fire certification course through the National Fire Academy, and one of his service projects, if you will, for that program, he chose to look at our company inspection program and see if there was a way that we could make it better, if there was a way that we could be more efficient with our personnel and our time. So he went around and sent questionnaires to all of the businesses that had gotten inspected by the fire department that year, and then got those responses back. And there was an overwhelming indication in those surveys that if a self-inspection program was offered, that folks would be interested in that. So here's how we envision it working. It's an opt-in program that we would spend advertising time and energy on to let people know that the program is out there, to identify who would be eligible. As I envision it, we would do some kickoff events. So think of a place like Harbor Plaza, where we've got 60, 70 light hazard businesses all in one area, where we can take our deputy fire marshals and maybe our Station 1 crew and go down there and help to teach people about the program for their first inspection. And we've got some other large business type occupancy grouping areas throughout the town, so we can kind of spread this out and get the word out. We've also conceptually anyway presented this to the Downtown Association, and they said that they would be interested in helping us to spread the word around to the people within their group. And the Chamber of Commerce, I presented on this a while back to the Coeur d'Alene Realtors Group at one of their monthly meetings. So there's some avenues there for us to spread the word, to get people to come into the program, and then to ensure that people aren't just kind of, pencil whipping the form and turning it in. We'll go out and we'll do some spot checks on some of these businesses that have submitted reports that say they're all good to go, and make sure that they are actually good. And then we have a bunch of resources available on the website that will be able to help people to do this correctly. And you guys have hard copies of most all of those items with the exclusion of the videos. So these are actually currently listed on our website. They are just not turned in because, of course, we've not started this, but you have the welcome letter that kind of explains what the qualifications are. We have 2 videos, one that's an overview of the whole program and one that is an actual run through of a fire inspection. So if you're wondering, what do you mean test my exit lights? We have a video that will show you how to test your exit lights. The application is electronic, so you can either print it out, which is what you guys got, is a printed out version of it, or you can just open it up on your phone or your iPad or tablet, and you can run around and do your inspection, enter your results, and when you're all done, you submit it, and it comes to us, and we track it. And then we also have the common deficiencies, the trifold there that you guys have. So as I stated, I think we have to, each occupancy is called out in the ISRB regulations, but really our focus is on all high hazard or where we want our focus to be is on all high hazard buildings that require pre-fire plans and require a lot of significant fire suppression knowledge and training, right? We want to get our guys into those high hazard buildings so that if something does happen there, we have a better chance of getting people out. We have a better chance of keeping all of our folks safe. We were doing company inspections. After about a 14-year hiatus, we started again in 2010, and between 2010 and 2015 was the time frame that it took us to get into all of the businesses in the city, all of the commercial occupancies. So it took us about 5 years. There was actually a little more bleed over there, so maybe 6 to 7 years totally for us currently with our 2 deputy fire marshals and our companies to go out and try and get through all of the inspections in the city. As you guys are well aware, we continue to grow. Our prevention division remains at the same staffing level, and our duty crews continue to respond to an increased number of 911 calls. And as well as facing increased demands for training time, and just the types of response that our firefighters will respond to. So we know, of course, that there's some challenges. Okay, we recognize that this is a voluntary program, and so voluntary programs are difficult to get people into. They're difficult to get people compliance and to enforce on it. There is actually a movement within the fire service to not even do inspections in low hazard occupancies because, quite frankly, the hazard is that low. So we feel like if we can get anything that we can get in these type of occupancies is better than the nothing that we're currently getting. And then if we divvy up the way that we do inspections to high, moderate, the government agencies, critical infrastructure, these will move down that priority. And so we may not see these but every 6-7 years. So if we can get them into this self-inspection program, we feel like we're going to get a safer community, even in our lower hazard occupancies. And of course, we're going to help people figure out if they're eligible or not.
Mr. Gookin, you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Kiki?
How does this interface with the program we were just talking about then, your third-party inspectors? So if they're self-inspected and they turn it all in,
Yep.
the third-party person is just not deployed to that address?
So in most of these lower hazard occupancy types, they may not have a fire sprinkler system or a fire alarm system, so they may not have any interactions with an individual inspection, testing, and maintenance company, and that's really kind of the easiest inspection for them. That's really where we're shooting for these people, right? But that being said, a clothing store down on Sherman, in their space, they may not have sprinklers, but the sprinklers may be down in the basement in their storage area, right? Because that was just a weird deal in the code that required it down there, but not on the main floor. So in that case, they would qualify because that small clothing store that maybe has one fire extinguisher really to check also has a fire suppression system into the basement. So we want to make sure that that's getting done as well. And then within the checklist there, you can walk down, you can look at the tag that's on your suppression system, and you can see that it's done. But yeah, so
It's
hopefully
kind of almost a case-by-case basis based on size and what
it
their
is,
current-
but the third-party inspection program will help to make this easier. If you don't know anything about a fire sprinkler system, but all I've told you in my helpful resources is to go down to your riser, this thing that has a whole bunch of black and red pipes, and look for a hanging tag that's going to show when your last inspection was. Well, if our third-party inspection program is keeping us in that 95% range of compliant systems. It's going to be a lot easier for you to walk downstairs, look at the riser, have an actual system that's been inspected the way that it's supposed to, that's listed and labeled in the place that it's supposed to, and now you know, as opposed to you could walk down there and not have any idea. You go and look at the tag, it hasn't been done for 5 years, and you go, well, now what do I do with it? Because now I have a no, and I'm going to get an email from the fire department saying, you got something that needs to be fixed, and what do I do about it? So I think they're going to partner very well together in, you know, if we do have a low hazard occupancy that does end up having some fire suppression systems, those systems should be tested in the way that they're supposed to, and should make the inspection easier for them.
So just in a final note, the copy I have has some notes on it. So am I assuming that the final copy is corrected and available online?
It
Electronic.
can be,
Can be.
yes.
Okay.
So it was actually written by Kirk. So before we flip the switch on it, we have to make sure that our current IT folks know where it is and know how
Okay.
to make it available for the public.
Craig, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So if I want to start a bar, I'm going to sell wine and records,
Yeah.
and I'm going to come to the city, I need to get a permit of some sort. Is that what triggers this? So these people go, oh, you know, you're going to open a business, here's some things you have to have. What do you mean I need a fire extinguisher? What do you mean I need exit lights? How does that work right now? How do people know what's expected of them on the safety side?
Sure. So it starts out with what I think is probably the best program that we run and we offer to somebody looking to start a business, and that's project review, right? So somebody's going to come in with a concept or an idea. They submit for a project review. All the departments get together. We have a big powwow with them, and we tell them all of the things that they need to do to open that business and be in full compliance with all of the codes. And a lot of that is, hey, here are these things. You're going to have fire extinguishers. They need to be every so many feet of distance in every floor. And
So that's not
it
necessarily.
might be you have a high enough hazard category that this is going to require fire sprinklers in here or fire alarms in
That's
here.
in a construction type, something from
Yeah.
scratch. What
Yep.
about just moving into a building and turning it into something? You get a sign permit, does that trigger it? What makes it so this information is out there?
So ideally, if it's enough of a renovation to require a building permit, then we would get to see it. The businesses that are not change of use, they're not doing any big remodel, they're just maybe changing colors of buildings, we may not know. And so there again, it's an address in our list to do, and if we're not aware that a change of use has come in and made that a more higher hazard, it's probably going to still be a low hazard, and we would get to it when we get to it.
Gotcha. It's like a big undertaking here, bud. All
We've
right.
been working on it a little while.
We appreciate you taking the time, and
Thank
looks
you.
like you guys have
And
put
our
some
plan
effort
is
into it.
to present to the other group as well, so you guys will all get a chance
All
to
right.
see it.
Thanks a lot, Craig.
Thanks.
And with that, we could.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
Second.
you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. 4 minutes.